Mr. Squidward, welcome to the night shift.
And hello, everybody, and welcome into another live edition of the Night Shift on the MI6 Sports Network. Again, folks, coming your way very late on this Saturday, September 19th, 2020, as we recap the big news, the big plays, the big games, and the big scores from your day in sports for our night owls out there. And of course, folks, we thank you for joining us here after a very great first show. We're back on air for our second program here tonight on this Saturday, and also with you tomorrow on Sunday as well to recap the entire slate of NFL football games. But of course, folks, joined as usual by the fellow night owl host, Isaiah Leung. Callan, McClurg, joining you folks here from the home studio in San Diego. Isaiah, good to see you, man. And of course, thanks for staying up late and for joining the program. And again, man, welcome to the night shift. How's it going?
Hey, it's going great, Callan. I watched a lot of college football today. It was just really, really good action. You know, a lot of close games. We didn't really have that many upsets as we did last week, but hey, it was still a lot of fun. You know, the Celtics, they came back with a much-needed bounce-back game, and you know, the A's, they moved one game away from clinching the American League West for the first time since 2013. So a lot of great stuff happening. Can't wait to talk about everything that is going on today in the world of sports.
So again, folks, let me reiterate how the show here works on the night shift. Again, folks, we come your way every Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday at around 10 o'clock p.m. Every single Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday. So again, starting this week, again, we already made that announcement. But again, Isaiah and I, or either Isaiah and myself, or me, or one of our late night hosts that are usually up around this time will come on, and we'll talk about some of the big games, the big news, and big scores that you probably, if you've been out and about, probably weren't able to watch any of the games like we had somewhat heard from Isaiah. But again, if you've been out, if you've been away from your phone, away from television, away from radio, or away from Twitter, we'll come here and do our best to give you a hour-long Cliff Notes version of the day of sports every Tuesday night, Saturday, and Sunday, again at 10 o'clock Pacific time right here on the 6th. And of course, folks, we also will take your input, your questions, your comments, your concerns on all things going on in the sports world. And again, we will again make sure to read those and have those again put out and shown live on the air. With that, Isaiah, we go to our first game tonight, bud, for our games of the day segment. And we'll first, man, go to game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals between Miami, the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics. And again, man, we have talked so much about this Miami Heat ball club and how they have just been so scary and they've been so out of control, or not out of control, but they've been very good, though, over the past several weeks of this postseason. And also, Isaiah, I know we had talked a lot on Friday on No BS with Trevor Williams and Furman Lee about the Celtics calling this or having this giant screaming match pretty much after game 2 had concluded over the past couple days. And it looked like it may have helped as the Celtics won the night 117-106 over the Heat to stave off a 3-0 deficit, led tonight by a much improved attack and also 4 players on the Celtics scoring 20 or more points. Jason Tatum, Kemba Walker, Marcus Smart, and Jaylen Brown all having 20 or more points starting-wise today for Boston, while the Heat came close but faltered, and they also got 22 points off the bench from Tyler Hero in this game. So, Isaiah, I know that we had really, I think, had a lot of emphasis on the Celtics having this closed door or this giant shouting match where, again, Marcus Smart kind of in a way may have lost his cool, lost his composure. But it seems though, man, it may have worked right now for one game for the Boston Celtics. Again, they got 4 of their 5 starters in double figures, all of them at 20 points or more, and I think had a much better attack and better scoring balance in this ball game. And even so, again, Tatum 25 points in 41 minutes played, very efficient scoring for a lot of the big names on the Celtics. So, Isaiah, your takeaway from this game and also seeing Boston able to at least get 1 in the win column after, again, a very tumultuous series so far.
Yeah, so my biggest takeaway from this game is that Boston played like it was game 7. It was win or go home for them. That was kind of their attitude coming into this game. I think that their meeting that they had after game 2 really helped them because they came out with a lot more fire. They played really crisp basketball instead of turning the ball over a lot of times. And, you know, you got to give credit to the big three. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Kemba Walker. These guys came to play. Jaylen Brown had 26 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists in 43 minutes. Jason Tatum had 25, 14 rebounds, and 8 assists, a double-double. And Kemba Walker had 21 points and 6 rebounds and 2 assists in 41 minutes of play. Those are the 3 guys that when they go, the Celtics go. So the Celtics needed these guys to step up. They did step up, and you know they're the Celtics are back in this series. And as far as the Miami Heat is concerned, I think the Miami Heat should honestly swap out Duncan Robinson and put Tyler Hero in as the starter because Tyler Hero gives you quick offense. From 3 when he comes in. He gives you great energy. And I really think that the Heat needed that in the beginning because they got off to a sluggish start. Miami got off to, they were down like 9 or 12 in the beginning of this game, and they never really recovered from it. And Duncan Robinson really struggled in this game. But Tyler Hero, he had a fantastic game. He's had a fantastic playoff. So I think Eric Spoelstra should, in fact, revisit that, potentially starting Tyler Hero at the shooting guard position over Duncan Robinson because I just think Robinson is a better fit for the bench because he's a great three-point shooter, but Hero is the guy that provides that spark that you need to come out of the gate in the playoffs.
You know, Isaiah, it's kind of baffling seeing the Heat stat line. They only had 5 players in this game at or either at or plus in the plus-minus stat category. Adebayo was a +1, Crowder even. And then you also had Robinson +1, and then off the bench, none +4. Hero was even, but then after that, everyone else was in minus figures. Examples: Jimmy Butler -7 in that category. Goran Dragic was a -29 in this ball game for Miami. Kelly Olynyk, former Celtic, -10. Daniel Jones Jr. -9 in this game. Andre Iguodala -6 as well. So definitely, Isaiah, you can definitely tell that tonight was definitely a different story for Miami in regards to, again, I think for probably the first time, they'll look like, in my mind, Isaiah, they really got punched in the face for the first time in a long time so far in the postseason. Do you agree?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. You know, Boston, they needed to win this game. They came out of a team that was very, very aggressive. And Miami, they didn't counter. They didn't counter with the same aggression as Boston did. So I think that was what was the problem for the Miami Heat, is that they just didn't play with that same sense of urgency like they needed to win this game. You know, the Heat played, I felt like they played with an attitude that, hey, we're up 2-0, you know, we can afford to lose this game because even if we lose this game, we're still up 2-1, and we can, you know, go up 3-1 in game 4 and then close out the series potentially in game 5. So I just didn't see the same sense of urgency and the same intensity the Heat have been playing with the last couple of games. And let's not forget, you know, Miami, they did trail in both those 2 games in which they won by 15 points going into the final fourth quarter. So the Heat have rallied back. But the difference in this fourth quarter was that the Miami Heat, they missed a lot of wide open shots. I believe that if they were to make those shots, I think they would have had the same story like they had in games 1 and also in game 2. So the story of this one was just the missed shots by the Miami Heat and just not coming out of the gate with any energy and also aggression.
In perspective, folks, Miami trailed after the first quarter tonight 31-22 and kind of in a way dug themselves pretty much a giant ditch, and they kind of fell in that ditch tonight. And again, they faltered to Boston 117-106. And again, the Celtics, more importantly, get back on the saddle and now trail 2-1. So Isaiah, as you think about the series now, again, the Heat win the first 2. You know, the Celtics have a bit of a maybe a bit of a minor or perhaps major blow up when game 2 concludes, with them perhaps having, I think, just a lot of pent up frustration that they were so close in 2 games to going up 1-0, tying a series, going up 2-0, but they fall 3 points short of doing so. And now, Isaiah, now that they probably have, for one, had their, maybe a meltdown of some type, now they've got a game under their belt. Does the momentum in your mind in this series switch from Miami to Boston, or do you still perhaps in your mind still have Miami as the favorite right now with them up 2-1? Or will momentum in your mind swing back the way of the Celtics heading into the next game?
I'm going to say, and this is going to shock you probably, I'm going to say I think the momentum has shifted to the Celtics simply because I just never felt like the Miami Heat had like real control of this series, because when you look at it, the Miami Heat have been lucky the past 2 games. They've dug themselves a hole. They managed to come back because Boston went ice cold in the second half in both games, and then they would come back in the fourth quarter and Jimmy Butler would just lead them to a win in both those 2 games. So I just think that Miami's gotten lucky the last 2 games. I don't think what they have been able, the recipe for success the first 2 games have, you can't really contain that. So Miami's just got to come out with better energy and with more fight in game 4 in the first half of the game, because if they go down again, like 15 points or even 20 points, they're not going to come back. I guarantee you that.
Isaiah, I think that I would agree, though. And I mean, honestly, I'm not surprised that you'd go that way, because sometimes though, when a team falls behind 2-0 and they get that first win, it can boost their confidence in a big way. Now, again, this isn't Milwaukee we're talking about, Sally, with how they again flamed out to the Miami Heat in the second round, though. But Boston, I think, oh man, like I said, and I said this, I think, on Friday, Isaiah, is that if the Celtics were to win the next 2 games, tie the series, and then if not, win the next 4 in a row, and, in a way, totally upset Miami with them down 2-0, and then win, the next 4 in a row, that we could definitely look back and point the finger and say that blow up after game 2 is why, in fact, they won that game over the Miami Heat. Isaiah, would you agree, though, that if, in fact, the Celtics tie this series, go ahead in the series, or win the whole kit and caboodle, we can all agree that it was mainly, we can point a finger and say that blow up after game 2 is why they won the series, and they came back as a good cohesive unit to win the entire series?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because that meeting, that tense meeting, really gave them that boost that I believe that they needed to win. If they do, in fact, win, like either the next 4 or 3 out of the next 5 to take this series, I just think that meeting will be looked back on as the turning point, because they were so close to winning the first 2 games. They had those 2 games in their hand. They let it slip away. And then the Celtics were just so frustrated at that point. They got all their anger out, and then they just played with a lot more energy. They played with a lot more aggression, and they played with a lot more fight in game 3. And I really hope that it continues as we go along the rest of the way in this series.
So again, folks, Boston beating Miami 117-106 to grab game 3 of the Eastern Conference Final. They'll play game 4 on Monday down in Orlando, Florida. With that, Isaiah, will now switch gears to college football. Of course, man, another great day, probably another awesome day of college football. I know, man, that we had 2 games that we were watching very closely here on the 6 by virtue of our Pigskin Pick'em on Friday on No BS. So, Isaiah, maybe give us 1 or 2 games that you were probably watching very closely on this Saturday night. What were the games and why?
So the first game that I was really watching was the Saturday night football game between Miami and Louisville. Callan, before I go any further, I just want to congratulate you as being the only person on the No BS team that picked Miami in Pigskin Pick'em. So you basically swept everybody in that matchup. But yes! This game, for me, was very, very telling. And, a lot of people have been doubting Miami the last couple of years, and for a lot of valid points, simply because the Miami Hurricanes, they've had such high expectations, and they've had great players and great coaches on their team, but they would just always fall short. They had a great defense the last 3 years, but their offense was just atrocious. So people started doubting the Miami Hurricanes after last season's debacle. And the Miami Hurricanes, I think they heard all that noise. They made a lot of changes this offseason. They brought in Rhett Lashley, the offensive coordinator from Auburn, to be their offensive coordinator. He's running a lot of the Auburn offense with the up-tempo, no-huddle offense, a lot of the misdirection, trick plays, zone read concepts that you will typically see at Auburn. He's running that at Miami, and I think that offense is giving the Miami Hurricanes a huge boost because the first 2 games that they played this season, the Miami Hurricanes have scored at least 35 plus in each of those 2 games. So I just think that everybody should watch out because with that new offensive coordinator coming in, a great defense that they already have before, led by Manny Diaz, their head coach, who's a phenomenal defensive mind. And also they got De'Aaron King, the quarterback from Houston, who transferred over. He was a very stellar quarterback at Houston. In fact, a lot of people said that going into last season that he could be the potential Heisman Trophy winner, but he flamed out there. He went over to Miami, gets a fresh start, and he's been absolutely balling out. The Miami Hurricanes, ladies and gentlemen, I think could make a serious run at the ACC championship and really challenge Clemson in the ACC for that ACC crown.
I do agree, Isaiah, by virtue of this road victory for the Canes, 47-36. They knock off Louisville in Louisville, Kentucky earlier today. But Isaiah, I think more so, not just about the games today, but Isaiah, there's some very disturbing and some rocky news for Florida State football fans. That was the report that had come out, I should say, during halftime of the Tulsa-Oklahoma State game earlier Saturday morning. And that was the reports from ESPN sources that confirmed that Noles head coach Mike Norvell had tested positive for COVID-19. So, Isaiah, this, I think, man, could have a pretty big effect. Not really a big effect, but probably a bit of a impact, I'd say, on how Florida State is able to perhaps play sometime soon by virtue of the head coach testing positive. And again, I know that's been like the one thing that's kind of been in the back of my mind for football, college and the pros, is what happens if in fact there is a outbreak amongst a team, or even for this matter the coaching staff coming down with COVID. But Isaiah, how about your reaction though to Coach Norvell and his positive COVID test for Florida State?
When I saw that news, I was really shocked because I think Florida State had played last week, and this news just really jarred me. It brought me back to reality because, a lot of people had been on this football high. A lot of people had forgotten that COVID-19 still existed. But this news brings everybody back. Like, this COVID reminded us that, hey, I'm not going anywhere. I'm still here. I could just ruin your season just like that. So everybody's got to take the proper precautions, wear your mask, social distance, because I know like a lot of people's tired of this virus. I know a lot of people want to forget about it, but this virus isn't going away anytime soon. And if we don't take the proper precautions, if we don't social distance, if we don't wear any masks, and also stay 6 feet apart, we aren't going to have sports. We're going to probably not even have our normal lives back together. And also we're going to get sick. So it's just your daily reminder that COVID is still real and it's a serious issue.
Isaiah, do you believe that college and the NFL should have taken cues maybe from baseball and hockey and basketball, for that matter, and even Major League Soccer? No fans in the stands, regardless of what the state law or even the state government even says right now at this time?
Yeah, I do think they should, because when you look at like states like Georgia, when I first saw that Georgia was like allowing, I think it was like 25% to 30% of their crowd they're allowing into the stadium for next weekend's match against Arkansas, I was very befuddled because I was like, you are having a serious outbreak on the campus of the University of Georgia, and also the state of Georgia is having a massive
outbreak of the coronavirus. Why are you still letting fans in? Like, that's such a dumb decision. You're going to have, with you letting more fans in to the stadium, there's going to be an even bigger outbreak on campus at the University of Georgia. So I don't really know what those folks at Georgia were doing. I really don't think that college football should have allowed any fans, because, you know, if you allow fans, the risk of a lot of people getting COVID is even more higher, and it's even more higher that they can spread it to other people, and there could be another massive outbreak in the respective schools.
We'll see how it goes, folks. But for right now, it looks okay for right now in regards to fans being at NFL games in certain markets, and also as well for college football. Again, I was watching that Oklahoma State Tulsa game today. It looked like there was some very good jobs done by the Cowboy fans in a way. Looked like they had a very good plan in place with 6 feet pretty much on the bleachers out there. Looked like that fans were allowed to bring in their own seat backs for the metal bleachers, but they were all, I think, spread out pretty well. Mask on, mask off, whatever it looked like. But it looked like, at least though on television, it looked good. So at least it looks good on TV, but hopefully nothing else really comes out of it as more time does progress on here. But again, folks, night shift is on. And again, we'll take your input on, we'll take all your input, your questions, your comments, or concerns as we in fact move on throughout the course of the program here tonight. With that, Isaiah, moving over now, man, to Major League Baseball, in the Oakland A's one step closer to an AL West division championship with a 6-0 shutout today over the Bay Area rival San Francisco Giants earlier on Saturday. Isaiah, I will say, man, it has been a long time coming to kind of see teams, like I have said before, man, but see teams like the A's, like the Padres, like the White Sox, like the Blue Jays and the Rays, the Marlins, finally getting a shot, man, to either get in the postseason for the first time in a long time, or in a way, though, kind of proving that the little guy has as much right to be a part of the postseason party as the big dogs out there in Major League Baseball. Isaiah, first and foremost, man, I know that, of course, that the A's sadly lost Matt Chapman earlier last week due to hip surgery because of a nagging injury he's had, though. And they go out and sign Jake Lamb, who for the longest time was with the Arizona Diamondbacks. And Jake, of course, has also sadly been, in a way, marred by injuries as well. But so far, Isaiah, it's not been the case right now in Oakland. Talk a little bit about the newest acquisition for the Oakland A's and Jake Lamb.
Yeah, Jake Lamb, I believe, has been the steal of the trade deadline right now. Like, he wasn't even traded, but he was DFA'd during the trade deadline because Arizona, I believe, they had to make room for some of the prospects or some of the players that they traded for during the trade deadline. So they DFA'd him for the assignment, and the A's, they just picked him up off the scrap bin. And man, has this guy been good. This guy has hit for power. This guy's has, you know, hit all of the gaps in the field. He's played tremendous defense in replacing Matt Chapman. I mean, it doesn't even look like the A's have skipped a beat without Matt Chapman on the field. That just shows you how good Jake Lamb has been. I think Jake Lamb, since coming to the A's, he has 7 hits in 5 games with the Oakland Athletics for 2 home runs. I believe like 2 or 3 doubles. He's just been really, really good, really good power bat in the middle of the lineup. And I just think that if he continues to stay healthy, and that's a big if for him, but if he continues to stay healthy, this guy is going to be a major difference maker as we go into October and into the postseason, when the A's have notoriously gotten cold in October during the playoffs. So I just think that Jake Lamb right now, with his hot bat that he is swinging, he's going to be able to translate that into great postseason success. And to, like, I really honestly think that even with Matt Chapman coming back next year, I think the A's should try to bring Jake Lamb back, maybe as like a bench piece, or maybe as a guy that can play second base for the A's, because as of next year, the A's don't have anybody right now settled at second base. They have Chad Pinder, but he's more of a good hitter against lefties. He's not really good against righties. He's more of a platoon bat. They have this guy named V-Mile Machine. He's more of a defensive infielder than a hitter. Jake Lamb, with his defense, his power bat, I would honestly bring him back next season.
Isaiah, I know that, of course, that the A's are able to hit the ball out of the ballpark and things like that, man, and they play great defense and they can hit. But, Isaiah, if there's maybe one chink in Oakland's armor as we come down the stretch here towards the postseason, what maybe is the one area that might be a level of concern for you and also for A's fans as the postseason does near within the next week or two?
I think the biggest possible chink in the A's armor could be what I've been saying for this whole season, and that is the A's are a terrible team when they get runners in scoring position. I think the A's honestly could have won at least 8 to 10 more games this year if they could just do the little things and get runners over when there's runners at first and second with nobody out, or get them home when there's a runner at third with nobody out. The A's have really, really struggled with runners in scoring position. I don't know why that's a kryptonite. Weird. I think they are hitting like 200 with runners in scoring position. That's not good, because in October when it gets freezing cold, the ball is not going to go out of the ballpark often. So you're going to have to do the little things. You're going to have to bunt people over. You're going to have to steal a base here or there. You're going to have to move runners from first and second to second and third and then drive them in with a sacrifice fly or an RBI grounder. You're going to have to do the little things if you want to advance far into the postseason. So I believe the A's, with the final 7 games of this season, they need to work on that and get better at that, or else they're not going to advance far in the postseason.
Definitely agree for sure. And again, folks, the Giants in A's today, with the A's winning one step closer now to the American League West Division Championship, with them defeating San Francisco today 6-0. With that, Isaiah, let's move now, man, to some of the big headlines today that people may have missed out on today. And that, of course, Isaiah, is the big news from the Big Ten Conference, that the 8 games in 8 weeks for the 2020 Big Ten football season schedule have, in fact, been released on the Big Ten's official website. Going to run through a couple of the matchups. And again, it'll be the top team in the Western Division playing the top team in the Eastern Division for the Big Ten championship game during the course of or on December 19th. And again, Isaiah, plenty of notable games here. Again, of course, Ohio State and Michigan will wrap up the season per usual. Wisconsin will face Iowa in their final game, and Minnesota will face Nebraska in their final game. So again, Isaiah, the Big Ten, 8 games, 8 weeks, no margin for error with a COVID outbreak, it seems like, man. Isaiah, your overall thoughts on how the Big Ten finally came to this decision after what feels like, man, a eternity of trying to figure out how to, in fact, get football back on the schedule and back playing during the ongoing pandemic?
Well, my thoughts on this is that I really think that the Big Ten should have, not jumped the gun like in August and just make this quick decision to cancel the season instead of looking at all the facts before they did, because that really hurts the Big Ten. Now with football actually coming back for the Big Ten, they're not going to have any weeks or any week offs, because let's say you have a COVID outbreak. How are you you're going to just cancel the game? You're not going to be able to push a game back or postpone a game like we've seen multiple times already here in this college football season. So those weeks, those empty weeks, those are very, very crucial. And I feel like for the Big Ten not having those is it's going to be a really bad situation for them. And the other thing I have is that a lot of people are saying that Ohio State are going to win the college football national championship this year. They're going to breeze through the Big Ten. Watch out for that game on Halloween, because Halloween night at Penn State, at Beaver Stadium, if Penn State does allow some fans into the stadium, I don't know how many fans are going to allow, but if they do allow some fans, I know it's not going to seem like the usual white out, but it's still going to be a very effective white out in the stadium with at least 20 to 25,000 or even 30,000 fans in the stands. And it's going to be loud. It's going to be cold, Halloween night. So watch out. Some spooky things might happen to Ohio State on Halloween night at Penn State.
Isaiah, I think the main reason why I think that the Big Ten kind of what you had said, though, rushing to a conclusion, jumping the gun, taking a false start penalty for a 5-yard, for being pushed back 5 yards. I really think boils down to what had gone on over the course of the last couple months, maybe last month more so, mainly with I'm going to say it here, with the pressure kind of applied by the Power 5 players, again, who are trying to form, this giant unity group to, again, kind of stand up to the conferences and say, hey, let us play football. Let us play our season this year. We know that there's a global crisis going on, but let us play our season. But also, I think that the Big Ten, though, Isaiah, was kind of feeling the wrath, though, or the pressure, I'd say, though, too, as well, my man, from Nebraska. And I know that when we had Ryan Schreiner on earlier this past week on Wild Sports Talk, was that Ryan had kind of said that, Nebraska, here they've not been a very relevant program recently in football, but I believe eight of their players, sued the conference for not allowing them to play their season, and that Nebraska looks like a winner here in this case. So, Isaiah, do you think that more so that the decision was reached kind of in a hurry manner because of the corporate, or more so the pressure applied by players and by families that said, we're paying all this money to go to this school and we can't play our season? Give me a break. Isaiah, do you believe it's more so about pressure being applied from outside influences that made the Big Ten kind of, in a way, rush or jump the gun on this decision to bring the season back come October 24th in your mind?
Yeah, I think the Big Ten did, in fact, bow down to the pressure. I mean, they had to, because when they jumped the gun early on in August, I believe, and made that stupid decision at that point, to cancel the season or postpone the season, without looking at all the facts that were gathered by the committees and stuff like that. That decision right there, I think, was so dumb that the parents of the athletes, they looked at all the conferences that did the right thing. They took their time to look at the facts, look at all the testing that was available, and they said, why if the SEC is playing and the Big 12 is playing, and they're having games might still be canceled, but the season is still going on, then why can't we play? We've got the same testing that they have. We have the same amount of resources they have, but we can't play. So it's really ridiculous. I just think that the Big Ten did, in fact, bow down to the pressure.
Isaiah, I think a lot of people that probably are not Big Ten football fans, who probably are college football fans, would probably agree, though, that I think that's man, they really, in fact, caved under the pressure, I think. And I think I feel that way as someone who views a lot of college football games, who I think picks at least one school in every conference, minus maybe a couple of conferences. But that, as an outsider looking in to the Big Ten, it's kind of I get that they probably, may have, I think, Isaiah, the whole process, I think, was very rushed in regards to just totally coming out and saying, okay, everything is canceled for the start of the school year in regards to football, volleyball, soccer, cross country. And then in a way, they kind of reversed course. But Isaiah, why reverse course, but only for football reasons? Now, again, man, I know, though, that the main argument is going to be, well, football keeps all these other, sports like soccer and like basketball, or not basketball, but football kind of keeps soccer and keeps cross country, volleyball, baseball funded because of that revenue. But Isaiah, do you think that probably that people that maybe are not football fans for college would look at this and say, okay, but why are you going to reverse course on, for example, on football, but not for my solder or done soccer season? Isaiah, do you think that probably should have been the whole way, where all fall sports should have come back for the Big Ten and not just their football season?
Yes, I do. I really think that all the fall sports should have came back, because if you're just going to reinstate football, I get that football is the biggest moneymaker, but that's unfair to all the athletes that play the other sports, that had you jump the gun at the beginning of the season without looking at all the facts and just rushing and canceling the season, or postponing the season in panic. So I really believe that they should have done it. But I understand why, because those other sports, unfortunately, don't really make that much money. They're funded by the money that that football makes. So I think that's pretty much why, because I think the schools just looked at it and said, we're going to lose a lot of money from the COVID pandemic. So why not just try to make some of that money back from football coming back?
So again, folks, the Big Ten has announced their 8 games and 8-week schedule for the college football season again. And it should be noted that Ohio State will play Michigan in Ann Arbor for the final game of the regular season come December 12th. But again, folks, it is 8 games in 8 weeks with no margin for error. And I think, Isaiah, Isaiah, that's the main point I think is probably infuriating a lot of people that are, in fact, watching with bated breath or like kind of in a way like very tense or stressed out, that what really is going to happen, though, if, in fact, there is an outbreak amongst Wisconsin, Minnesota, or even with Ohio State, Isaiah. I think, man, that's the big time fumble that the Big Ten did not consider is what will happen with that with the schedule if in fact that a team has an outbreak, Isaiah. So I think, though, man, okay, Isaiah, let's just nail it down to these two. Which one is probably worse in your mind? The Big Ten caving to the pressure from parents and players, or not scheduling any free weeks in the event of an outbreak of COVID-19 amongst players, or is it all the above?
It's them not scheduling any free weeks, because the free weeks are very, very crucial during this pandemic season. Because, like, as you said, Callan, like, what if Wisconsin has an outbreak? Then I'm pretty sure if Wisconsin has an outbreak, they have to quarantine for 2 weeks, and then their host, like, not the whole season, but probably like 3 weeks of the
season would be gone.
Yeah, 3 or 4 weeks of the season will be gone. And you're not just impacting Wisconsin or the team that they're playing. You're impacting 2 or 3 or 4 of the teams that Wisconsin was slated to play because they have an outbreak and now they don't have an opponent. So it's just really ridiculous. Those 4 weeks, you had to schedule, not 4 weeks, but you had to schedule 3 weeks to during this coronavirus pandemic season. I don't know why the Big Ten didn't do that. It's really ridiculous. And now, teams, they're going to have a right to complain. Like, let's say Wisconsin misses 4 weeks. They have 4 games canceled, and the Big Ten does the standings by winning percentage. And let's say Wisconsin, even though Ohio State played the full 8 games, and Wisconsin only played like 4 games, Wisconsin goes 4-0 and they're undefeated. They have a better winning percentage than Ohio State, who lost 1 game. Wisconsin's gonna be like your Big Ten champion, even though they played less games. It just doesn't make any sense.
So, folks, give us your thoughts on the Big Ten. Again, we'll hopefully be able to get the comments on screen here in regards to, I think we just had some problems with the privacy settings today on this, on the post today. I do have one here from Ron Davis. Ron did write in. I'll have to pull it up here on my computer, or my other one right next to me. Isaiah, Ron writes in and says, Callan, the Big Ten botched it, or the Big Ten botched it, but worst look of all is the Pac-12, because now they're so obviously, desperately, just trying to not be the only Power 5 conference not playing. So, Isaiah, do you agree about that? I think maybe we may have touched base on this a little bit over the course of the week, but Isaiah, now, man, what does this probably do? Like I said, though, and I think we may have gotten your thoughts on this, but if you can reiterate, now, man, how does the Pac-12 view this in regards to seeing another Power 5 conference getting back on the field? And yet, they are still right now not playing for one, COVID, but also as well, man, as we already have talked about as well. But again, the air quality recently out west because of the fires burning across the West Coast.
Yeah, I mean, the Pac-12 looks really incompetent. I mean, their leadership from Larry Scott, the commissioner, all the way down to the bottom, just really, really incompetent. The Big Ten, the good thing about the Big Ten is that even though they did postpone the season, they kept their players in training camp. Their players were able to work out. But the Pac-12, after they postponed the season, they didn't allow their players to go to the facilities to work out. They didn't put the measures needed to keep their players safe during the coronavirus in the facilities. So if they start a season by November 7th, like there's reports that they are trying to, their players aren't going to be ready. You're going to have guys like seriously getting hurt because they don't have any training camp. They don't have any practice. They didn't work out and stay in shape beforehand. You're just going to rush them on the field. It's going to be a complete disaster.
And we'll see if the Pac-12 rushes to any conclusions like the Big Ten regards to hopefully that they would have at least half a brain and at least put some bye weeks in there in case or in the event of there being an outbreak of COVID amongst one or if not some of the schools. But again, folks, the Big Ten is back. And we'll be back, though, eventually coming up October 24th for their football season. Isaiah wants to add on. What do you got for us, bud?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing. What makes this even worse is, let's say the Pac-12 does, in fact, try to rush everything back and try to play like an 8-game season in from November 7th all the way on. The College Football Playoff Committee has already said that the cutoff date to be eligible for the College Football Playoff is December 19. So from November 7 on to December 19, I believe you only have like 6 weeks. How are you going to play 8 games in 6 weeks? You're going to play 2 games in a week? So even if the Pac-12 does try to rush it back, they're not even going to be eligible for the college football playoff. So it's just really ridiculous. I don't know what the big Pac-12 is going to do. I hope that, I just think the best scenario for the Pac-12 is just move it to spring, have them play their season in the spring, and then they can get the season in at that time.
Definitely agree for sure. Ron Davis did right back in. He says, Callan, the Pac-12 thought they were chilling when they came to whatever shadow agreement with the Big Ten to hold out. They were waiting for another Power 5 to join them before announcing their holdout, and now they have to backtrack on all of that. Isaiah, do you agree about that with the Pac-12?
Yeah, they do. And, the Pac-12, they're going to cave under the pressure because it's the same thing with the Big Ten. The parents of the athletes, of USC athletes, UCLA athletes, Oregon athletes, they're looking at the rest of the country and saying, hey, we have the same testing, we have the same resources as all these other teams. Why can't we play? You have guys like Keaton Slovis, the quarterback for USC, who tweeted at California Governor Gavin Newsom asking, why can't we play? You had other USC players tweet at the California governor as well saying, why can't we play? And also at Larry Scott, the Pac-12 commissioner, asking, why can't we play? And telling him we want to play. So it's just a big hot mess right now for the Pac-12, and I honestly don't see a way they can get a full season through and be eligible for the college football playoff this year, in the fall.
It'll be interesting, folks, to see how the next several weeks pan out. Ron did write in, it will be a tragedy, though, not seeing Washington or Oregon be super overrated and then get killed by an actual good team come playoff time. I think that's what we live for, is death, taxes, and the Pac-12 getting slaughtered in the college football playoff, to be very frank and honest with you as well. Isaiah wants to add one more point. What do you got for us, man?
You forgot one thing, too. The thing that you forgot, Callan, is death, taxes, and Clay Helton underperforming, yet keeping his job.
That's the last thing Trojan fans want to hear, is that name, Clay Helton. With that, Isaiah, let's move on now, man, to some baseball. Again, man, as we wind down the Major League Baseball 60-game regular season sprint, and Twins third baseman Josh Donaldson did not hold back comments 2 days ago at baseball umpires, saying that there is, quote-unquote, no accountability with the group and that the umps don't care, close quote. Donaldson told reporters on Saturday in a video call, per a transcription picked up by the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, quote, if the umpire consistently isn't doing his job correctly, that's affecting our careers and that's affecting our success. At the end of the day, there's no, they're not reprehended. There's no accountability for the guys that are making the decision. As a matter of fact, they don't care. They don't care at all. Most of them, they just want to get the game over with for the most part. And it's pretty sad because guys are making 6 figures a year and there's no accountability, close quote. This, folks, comes after Donaldson had barked at home plate umpire Dan Bellino for the second time on Thursday in the 6th inning of a 4-3 loss to the Chicago White Sox. With the Twins down 3-2, Bellino called the strike when the 2015 AL MVP checked his swing on a 2-0 pitch from Reynaldo Lopez. Twins manager Rocco Baldelli went out to speak with Bellino, and Donaldson homered down the left field line on the next offering. After rounding the bases, Donaldson kicked dirt at home plate as he crossed it. He was immediately ejected for the act, and Donaldson, realizing he had missed home plate, returned to touch the plate, then argued as he kicked more dirt on top of home plate. And Isaiah, I will say this, though. This season, for sure, man, it's been a disastrous year for baseball umpires and baseball in general. As we already have said, man, plenty of times in regards to the whole season. But, man, I will say this, and this is not even about, my team winning or losing, man. But I will say, though, I kind of feel like, man, that there's been a bit of an increase. I kind of feel like maybe a bit of a deduction in arguments by virtue of course, the rules in place for COVID. But Isaiah, I don't know though. There's times, man, in games where I literally feel like the strike zone is being called one way for one team and not being called the same way for the other team. I think I felt that way tonight with the Padres and Mariners. There are a lot of pitches that were called on the inside corner for Seattle pitchers that were not called for Padre pitchers, as an example tonight. And then, Isaiah, we see this go off, man. And I think, though, Isaiah, that I think a lot of baseball fans and broadcasters have made this very loud and clear. And I think the most vocal has been Don Orsillo and Mark Grant on Fox Sports San Diego. Is, Isaiah, we see NFL referees be mic'd up when they announce penalties or announce a review. Isaiah, I think a lot of people in baseball would like to see baseball umpires really kind of give a reason as to why a certain call was made. Get on a microphone after a review is made. Even the Little League World Series does this. They have the umpires equipped and they say, after review, runner is safe, runner is out. So Isaiah, more so, man, excuse me, give me your thoughts on Josh Donaldson's tirade and also his remarks following the game on Thursday between the White Sox and Twins. And do you agree with him that maybe that baseball umpires are never or not held accountable for their actions over the course of a game, and for that matter, an entire series and season?
I think that Josh Donaldson watched our episode of Wild Sports Talk when I talked about, I think it was the Phillies and Braves game when Joe Girardi, and I went on that famous rant about Texas Roadhouse. You remember that, Callan. But I talked about Texas Roadhouse, went on that massive rant. And I think I was talking about Joe Girardi getting ejected when the umpire had clearly gotten the call wrong. And Girardi just went out to ask for an explanation. He didn't cuss at him. He didn't, call him a bad name or whatever. He just went out to ask him for an explanation why he called it like that. And can he reveal it? And then the umpire just ejected him. And I went on this huge rant. I said that the umpires are like dictators. There's no accountability whatsoever. They feel like they can do whatever the heck they want and just get away with it, which is so true. And Josh Donaldson is exactly right. Umpires, they are kind of like dictators. It's their way or the highway for managers and players and teams. They feel like they can do whatever the heck they want because Rob Manfred doesn't show them any accountability. There's no accountability in Major League Baseball umpiring. There's no fines or discipline for having gotten a call wrong. There's no demotions for having gotten calls wrong or making stupid calls, because if there was, the guys like Angel Hernandez wouldn't be in baseball. So I just think right now, what baseball needs to do is they need to establish a system where if you make a call that is obviously wrong, or you make something that let's say an umpire or a manager comes at you and just wants an explanation, and you just throw the guy out just for asking for an explanation, I think there should be some consequences, because if there's not, the umpires are going to keep acting this way and nothing's going to change.
Isaiah, I think more about baseball, as I have said plenty of times. I played the game my entire life from T-ball till high school. And as a baseball fan, there's quite a few umpires' names that still stand out in my mind. That's Don Deakinger, who blew the 1985 World Series for the Cardinals against the Royals. There's also the man himself, Jim Joyce, blowing Armando Galarraga's no-hitter or perfect game with the Tigers on a obvious call that he missed at first base many years ago. But Isaiah, one notorious umpire stands in the mind of this San Diego Padres fan, and that is Rich Garcia. You might remember him, folks, for blowing the Derek Jeter, Jeffrey Meyer home run in the 1996 ALCS, where Meyer clearly reaches over the fence, takes the home run away from Tony Tarasco, and Garcia calls it a home run, even though the replays clearly show that that ball was not going to be over the fence. And it was so bad that Armando Benitez came charging out from the mound to argue that call, as did their manager, Davey Johnson. But Rich Garcia forever lives in Padre lore for the missed called third strike on Tino Martinez in Game 1 of the 98 World Series. And I actually found out, folks, from Ted Leitner, a longtime Padre broadcaster, following that World Series, Isaiah, Rich Garcia never, ever umpired another game. He retired because he felt that bad about a call that cost a team a strike and out, and more importantly, could have cost them a game in the World Series. So, Isaiah, I think I agree with you, buddy, in regards to maybe there being some type of a standard or a structure in place of a missed call. You know, it's like pretty much I would compare it to a game of 301 or 300 or 501 on when you play darts, where every time you get a point, you deduct points. Give them like a 100-point grading scale. And if there's a missed call or if there's a call that is challenged and is overturned, you get docked a point. And it just kind of keeps going down that list or down that way. Isaiah, what probably could be done, though, by baseball to probably, in a way, kind of hold these guys accountable? I think as well, man, sadly, I would think that people like Joe West, because of age, you got to go, big fella. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just think that what baseball needs to do is, first of all, I don't think baseball will end up doing anything because, I mean, let's face it, like if they wanted to do something, they could have done it 20 years ago, but they're not going to do anything because if they do, the umpiring union is going to, protest and stuff like that. Like I think they did that one time when I forgot who it was. I think it was Angel Hernandez made a terrible strike 3 call against Ian Kinsler, and Ian Kinsler just absolutely went bananas post game, and he completely ripped Angel Hernandez, and all of baseball umpires for just being absolute garbage. And then the very next day, every umpire across baseball wore these like white bands across their arm as a sign of protest or whatever. So I don't believe baseball sadly will do anything. But if they were to do something, I want to throw an idea that a lot of people have been talking about. And also John Miller, the San Francisco Giants broadcaster on KMBR, brought up, and that was, why don't you have like someone upstairs, and he's the guy that's looking at all the pitch casts that they have on the technology, and then you have an umpire down below wearing an ear set, and then you have a guy upstairs relaying whatever that pitch was on the pitch cast to the umpires, and the umpire can, put his arm up like strike or ball or whatever. I think that would be better.
That would be better, I think. And also, I think with the talk of the robotic or automated strike zone, which I think is getting some kind of leeway in the minors, or it was at least, that could be very interesting. But I think, though, folks, Josh Donaldson speaks for a lot of people with his remarks again about that there is no accountability being shown by baseball toward umpires in the game, and certainly in a season like this where, again, it's been marred by so much off the field nonsense this season. Definitely, I think, folks, we all agree that probably Josh Donaldson is onto a very great point. With that, Isaiah, let's now, man, go back to some more baseball news for, in fact, wrap up for the night, big fella. Justin Verlander, officially done for the year, probably, I think, as well, Isaiah, his career is probably also done, needing Tommy John surgery. He's been out for a very extended amount of time due to a very complicated, not really complicated, but more so of that elbow problem he's been suffering from, and also the forearm strain he had earlier in the season. Isaiah, is this probably in your mind the end of the road for one of the great pitchers in baseball, despite the 2017 Astros scandal?
Yes, I believe it is, because Tommy John surgery, when you're a youngster, it's already very hard to come back from. Like, we've seen it with guys like Shohei Ohtani, who before Tommy John, the guy was throwing 96 to 100. After Tommy John, he was throwing like 87 to 90, and that's just being kind. His velocity went down a lot, and you've seen a lot of pitchers also like Griffin Canning and Johnny Cueto who have struggled coming back from Tommy John surgery. And at his age, 37 years old. He's going to be 39 when he does, in fact, can come back after all the rehab and stuff, because he's going to miss not just the remaining of this season, but the remainder of next season as well. So he's going to be 39. That's really tough for him to come back. I know Cliff Lee of the Philadelphia Phillies, he tried to do that 1 year. I think he tried to come back from Tommy John surgery at the age of 38, I believe, and it didn't go well. He had a 5.50 ERA. He ended up walking away from the game because he just didn't have his stuff anymore. He couldn't control his pitches because of it. And I just think for Verlander, he has so much mileage on his arm. With this surgery now, he's going to be 39. It's just going to be too tough for him to come back. But hey, Justin Verlander is a guy that he doesn't shrivel when a challenge is presented to him. And he did say in that video that he posted on his Twitter that he will attack this rehab and try to come back. But I hope nothing but for the best for this guy. He's a fantastic pitcher. But I think that his career is most likely over. But if his career is not over, I think his Astros career is definitely over.
Isaiah, does him being a part of that 2017 Astros ball club in a way probably stain his reputation across baseball and in people's minds and your mind?
Yeah, I think it does, because if you look at Justin Verlander's Twitter account today, after he posted that video about needing Tommy John surgery, a lot of the comments weren't really sympathetic to him. A lot of the comments were telling him, hey, it's karma for what happened in 2017 and 2018 with all the cheating. It was just a lot of people bashing him. So I really do believe that a lot of people really don't feel bad for him, because, his legacy was tarnished by the 2017 cheating scandal, because he was part of that team. And before then, he was on the downhill of his career in Detroit. He got traded to Houston, and all of a sudden he became this really great pitcher once again. So who knows? Maybe there was cheating there, or the Astros used some illegal technology which really helped him come back from being a terrible pitcher at the downside of his career in Detroit to a great pitcher in Houston.
Might be time to open up one more investigation now for the Astros pitching staff. Who knows? But again, folks, Astros right-hander Justin Verlander confirming today Tommy John surgery needed for him, again, by virtue of a couple of injuries suffered over the course of the season. Isaiah wants to add on to his point. What do you got?
Yeah, but I want to add something about the Astros. I really think that the Astros, with this, not only this news, but all the injuries that they've suffered, I think the Astros are headed for a rebuild. Because if you look at it right now, in their own division, the Oakland A's have taken the throne in that division. They are the top dogs now in their division. They are very young. They're going to be there for the next 5 to 7 years. So, and the Astros are getting older. You have George Springer, who's a free agent this season. Michael Brantley, he's a free agent this season. Josh Reddick, he's a free agent. So all three outfielders could be gone. And then if you look at their pitching staff, it's Verlander's not going to be there. So it's Greinke, who has 1 year left, but he's throwing 85, 86. And then you have a bunch of unproven young guys, and their bullpen is so trash. You have guys that every time they come in, they give up 2 runs. So the Astros, they're in a hot mess right now. I think a lot of people are going to be leaving the Astros organization after this season. There's a lot of uncertainty at the manager role as well with Dusty Baker. He has only 1 year left on his contract. We don't know how the Astros are going to go moving forward. They have a new GM. So the Astros are in flux. I believe that they are heading for a rebuild after this upcoming season.
I did say that Mike Scioscia, former Angels manager, would be perfect for the Dodgers spot if Dave Roberts got fired. I'd throw Dusty Baker in that mix too. Again, he was also a member of the Dodgers back in the 80s. But again, folks, Justin Verlander needing Tommy John surgery confirmed via a video put out on Twitter. Finally, Isaiah, for the show tonight, again, some very sad news from Major League Baseball. That is Ron Gardenhire, longtime Major League Baseball skipper, best known for his time in Minnesota, now with the Tigers, is abruptly resigning as the Tigers skipper due to citing concerns over his health with COVID-19. Isaiah, I can't fault the guy for doing it, but I think the only thing a lot of people are saying is probably, Ron, why so late in the season? You only have a X amount of games left to go. I think, though, as well, Isaiah, probably as well. Travel at his age is also not one big factor. Of course, COVID concerns. So former Mariners skipper and also my man, former Pirates skipper Lloyd McClendon is going to take over for the Tigers with Ron's announcement. But again, though, Isaiah, I look though, man, at Ron Gardenhire, and I always remember him though for those great Twins teams in the late 2000s. Again, Game 163, and that game with the Tigers was absolutely sensational. Probably one of my favorite games I've watched. It wasn't even an actual playoff game in recent memory. Isaiah, first though, man, let's get your thoughts about Gardenhire's announcement and the timing of it more so than anything else. What do you think about Gardenhire's announcement, and again, the timing of it more than anything else in your mind?
I was very shocked at the announcement. I wasn't shocked that he was retiring. I actually thought he wasn't going to come back after this season because, it just, when he was first hired, it didn't really make sense to me why he was hired. I thought that he was a better fit for a team that was in contention. Like, I just didn't think, I think the Tigers, they needed a young manager that could grow with these young kids. So I didn't really understand why Ron Gardenhire, who at that time had the pick of the litter of jobs, decided to go and rebuild the Tigers, which was really I didn't understand that. So I think that for Ron Gardenhire, I really feel really sad for him that he couldn't spend the final years of his managerial career with a winning team. I would have loved that. I just think that for Ron Gardenhire, I heard reports that his during games his hands were shaking. He had stress issues. He just recently dealt with a bout of food poisoning, and at his age, with all the health issues that he's going on, he's got to get right because who knows? If you don't get right in terms of your health, there could be something serious down the road that could happen with you. And managing a ball club is just very, very stressful. So I understand the decision. I think for Detroit, it is time to stop, going with these managers that are either retreads or veteran managers. No disrespect to them. I think Detroit needs a manager that is young, up and coming, to help grow with these young kids and to develop these young kids.
Definitely agree. And I think that Ron Gardenhire, I think, just kind of in a way wanted to take some time off and come back just for the love of the game, or try to, I'm going to give it one more shot. But again, folks, as mentioned, Tigers manager Ron Gardenhire announcing his plans to resign his managerial post with the Tigers, against citing health concerns, more so his own health, not really with COVID, but also health is a main priority. So again, Lloyd McClendon, former Mariners and Pirates manager, will take over for the remainder of the season for the Detroit Tigers. Isaiah wants to add on once more. What do you got for us?
I am so glad that Lloyd McClendon is getting another chance to manage in the big leagues because I love Lloyd McClendon, man. I love the guy. I watched the guy in Seattle. I was actively rooting for him when he was the Mariners manager that year when they were deep into the playoff chase. To make the playoffs, because I love his energy. I mean, the guy is super energetic. He is such a raw guy. I love his ejections, man. And he needs to be a manager in the big leagues. And he's a guy that I think if he does, in fact, do get the permanent job with the Detroit Tigers, I think he will have success simply because the Tigers, these young kids need a guy that is raw to help motivate them and to help push them. So I think he would be a great fit for Detroit.
I agree, and I think that everyone remembers Lloyd with his ejection with the Pirates when he literally stole first base, tossed the hat aside, and walked down the stairs and hucked that base down the staircase. But again, folks, as a reminder, but once more, Ron Gardenhire, longtime baseball manager with the Tigers and also with the Twins, of course, but also mainly with the Tigers recently, will be resigning from his post as of effective immediately due to, again, citing health concerns with COVID and also with his own issues as well. Isaiah wants to further add on. What else you got for us, man?
Don't forget his ejection with the Mariners. I think they were playing the Yankees, and Alex Rodriguez had a check swing, and the umpire at first base, I believe, said it was not a swing, and McClendon got really pissed off, and he went to talk to the umpire at first base, and then after that, he went to air his grievance out against the umpire at second base, and then he went to third base to air his grievances against that umpire at third base. So it was so funny just to see him going to each each umpire airing his grievance out. It was the best.
You like that? You like that?
Joe Madden has done it before. I think Jim Leland did it before, and it's comical when that happens for sure. But with that, folks, we'll now jump in to our final thoughts for tonight's show. Saturday night, I feel all right for final thoughts on this September 19th for our second episode of the night shift here, keeping all of our sports fanatics up late at night, updated on all the big news and scores from across the wide world of sports. Again, Isaiah, some great football today, baseball clinching scenarios getting into kind of in a way into full focus for the baseball postseason. And of course, man, a great day of sports tomorrow. Plenty of NFL, and we'll be doing it all over again tomorrow to talk some NFL football and also hopefully more teams clinching playoff berths for baseball. Isaiah, final thoughts for tonight's show.
Yeah, my final thoughts are it was a great show. Thank you to all the night owls who stayed up and tuned into the show. We really, really appreciate your guys' support. Thank you all for supporting the MI6 Sports Network. We've grown tremendously ever since the end of July. And my final thought is I can't wait for tomorrow, because if the A's can sweep the Giants, or even if they lose, but the Astros lose to the Arizona Diamondbacks, I am going to bring some bubbly onto the night shift tomorrow night, and I will be able to pop some champagne, because that would mean my A's would have finally won the coveted AL West championship after so many years of wanting that. It's been a long journey to get to the top of the AL West mountain, filled with a lot of struggle and a lot of pain, but hey, we're almost up there, man. We just need that one more step to clinch that AL West championship. I hope it comes tomorrow so we can clinch it in Oakland. But also, I want to tell the fans out there, make sure you keep an eye on that 49ers-Jets game, because if the 49ers were to lose that game to the worst team in the NFL, the New York Jets, I don't even know if I will be able to come on, not just tomorrow night, but on Monday, because I will be extremely disgusted. So, Callan, John, you guys might have to do the show without me on Monday if I'm really disgusted if the Niners lose. Oh, and one last thing is one life lesson, ladies and gentlemen. Like this T-shirt says, live like a boss.
Do it. It's the only way. My final thoughts for the show, Isaiah piggybacking off of clinching scenarios. I know for a fact that if the Padres would have won tonight with the Reds losing and they would have clinched their first playoff berth in 14 years, this show would have not have happened, because I would have been out celebrating with my friends in downtown if the Padres would have clinched. But of course, they sadly, folks, lost tonight 4-1. But if they in fact win tomorrow, or the Reds lose, or whatever the scenario is, we may not be on air, because I may be downtown celebrating a Padres playoff clinch for the first time in 14 years. I was in 6th grade the last time that happened. So, Isaiah, if the Padres clinch, we may not be on air tomorrow, just so you know.
Hey, we might not be on air too, because I'm not just you, Callan. If the Padres clinch and the A's clinch, I might be going to Oakland to pop some champagne.
So, folks, we don't know about Sunday's show right now. It may depend on how the baseball teams do and how our football teams do, mine being the Bears, and, of course, Isaiah rooting for the Niners. And if we come on here a bit grumpy on Sunday night tomorrow, I think you know why, right, Isaiah?
Yeah, because it would either mean the Padres lost, or the worst case scenario, the 49ers lose to the Jets. Then I would have to come on air and with my Nick Mullins jersey on and publicly denounce Jimmy Garoppolo as the 49ers quarterback and say that Nick Mullins needs to be the starter moving forward.
So again, folks, we'll keep you posted. But again, we want to thank everyone, as Isaiah mentioned, for, again, staying up late and for, again, getting the Cliff Notes version of a sports day. Again, we'll try and do better on Sunday. If, in fact, our teams don't clinch, we'll be here. But if, in fact, we do clinch and our teams win, we will not probably, folks, be on air on Sunday. But if not, folks, we'll see you again back here tomorrow if everything goes wrong tomorrow. But if everything goes right, we probably won't be on. But, again, it's more of a joke. But, again, we're slated to be on here, folks, at 10 o'clock tomorrow night on Sunday. And then, of course, folks, a brand new week of coverage kicks off on Monday with Wild Sports Talk on Monday. And, of course, we come back on air on Tuesday night.
Get the barf bag ready, Callan.
Say that again?
Get the barf bag ready if the Niners lose.
I'll have that gif of Jim Parsons from The Big Bang Theory blowing into that brown paper bag repetitively, like hallucinating if that happens. But again, folks, a brand new week of programs coming up here again, starting off with the night shift tomorrow, 10 o'clock Pacific time. Then, of course, WST running wild again on Monday and Wednesday. The night shift is back on Tuesday. Fan response on Thursday, and another episode of No BS on Friday. So again, folks, we'll see you folks back here on Sunday, and of course back to kick off a new week of coverage on Monday. Till next time, folks, have a great rest of your weekend, and so long. Stay safe and stay healthy. Bye-bye.